Finding the music you love shouldn't be hard. That's why Pandora makes it easy to explore all your favorites and discover new artists and genres you'll love. Enjoy a personalized listening experience simply by selecting any song or album, and we'll make a station crafted just for you. Best of all, you can listen for free. Download Pandora on the Apple App Store or Google Play and start hearing the soundtrack to your life.
Why wait to see if you'll get something you like this Valentine's Day when you can go to BlueNile.com and find something you'll love? Whether you're looking to treat yourself to a little winter sparkle or show a galentine how much you appreciate them, Blue Nile offers a wide selection of high-quality designs, expert guidance, and free 30-day returns for the ultimate peace of mind. You can even design your own jewelry. Right now, save up to 50% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
When it comes to teaching kids and teens about money, practice makes perfect. That's where Greenlight comes in. With a debit card and money app of their own, kids learn to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest. Parents send instant money transfers, create custom chores, and automate allowance, while kids track their spending, set savings goals, and practice money skills they can use today and for life. Get 1 month free when you sign up at greenlight.com/podcast.
Welcome to Haunting History, the podcast that reaches back into the past for the events that shocked everyone. Tales of true crime, mystery, and the macabre. And when we're lucky, the stories were true crime, history, and the paranormal meet. Now, who doesn't love a good ghost story, right? Welcome back to Haunting History Podcast. My guest today is Brian Clune, historian and author. How many books have you written?
Right now I have 11 up. Excuse me. I have 11 up on Amazon, and the publishers have me working on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more, and then I'm working on 3 with my buddy and partner Bob Davis.
What is the one that I'm reading right now? Hollywood Obscura? Is that
Hollywood Obscura? Yeah.
Hollywood Obscura. So, guys, that's a lot of books. How long have you been doing that? How long have you been writing?
I've actually wanted to be an author since I was about 11 years old. But I actually was really bad. I mean, some of the things I wrote back then, I just looked at and went, okay, this is never going to happen. So it's kind of funny. When I started investigating the paranormal, I started writing things down, and I guess I did it as a kind of almost in a book format. So a couple people were looking at it and they were like, you ought to put that in a book. So I did. So,
and that's how you got started?
That's how I got started. That was back in, 2012, I believe. 2011.
You've only been, so like 10 years you started writing like 10 years ago?
Yeah, give or take. And then my first book was published, which was actually my second book. My first book that was published was Ghost of the Queen Mary, and that came out in 2014, if I remember correctly.
Oh, wow. So we're here today to talk. You and I met this past weekend in Las Vegas, and during our conversation, the Black Dahlia came up. So the reason why we're chatting is because you have a different theory, or you said it's not your theory. It was someone else's theory. Okay.
Correct.
So, but you believe in this theory.
I do.
Okay. And we did, I don't know if you've had a chance to listen, but we did a three episode series on the Black Dahlia. And one of the episodes was specifically about the suspects. And the suspect that you mentioned, that you told me about, I'm going to let you talk about him, is someone who is not originally a suspect, but has come to light just in like the last 10 years, right?
I believe Mr. Harnish published it a little more than 10 years ago. But yeah, nobody even has heard of this person, which really surprises me, especially when you look at everything that Mr. Harnish and the FBI profiler put together. It really is kind of hard to not think that, okay, this is most likely the guy who did it, even down to why he was never caught.
His name is Walter Bailey, but there was a middle name. What was his
Yeah,
middle name?
Dr. Walter Alonzo Bailey.
And how old was he when the Black Dahlia was murdered?
He was, if I remember right, just in his early 60s.
And then, and the author that you're speaking of, is the one who first even like recommended that he could have been involved in her murder.
Right. Now, Mr. Harnish, Larry Harnish, he is a retired Los Angeles Times investigative reporter. And he had gotten together with an FBI profiler because when Mr. Harnish first started reading about the Black Dahlia, he, like a lot of other people who have delved into the case, just got really deeply involved with it and couldn't get it out of his mind. And he just started, doing nothing but research. And then when he finally retired is when he got together with the FBI and came up with the suspect of Mr. Bailey. And one of the ways he did it is by doing something that nobody else really had, and that was checking out the properties in Leimert Park where Elizabeth Short's body was, for a better word, dumped after she was murdered. And he came across Mr. Bailey when they started delving into who lived in the area. And because he was a prominent doctor and had worked at not only a hospital as a surgeon, but also I believe it was USC, if I remember correctly, teaching. He started to check into that because of the way her body was found. Everybody knew that it was most likely somebody who was either, and I always got a kick out of this. They said it was either somebody who was familiar with surgery or who was a butcher. And by butcher, I mean an actual, somebody who cut up meat. Those were the two prevailing theories. So because this man was living in Leimert Park and he was a surgeon, they started to check into the man's life. And it turns out that Elizabeth Short's sister was actually married at Dr. Bailey's house. And they lived on Norton Street, which is one block from where the body was discovered. Bailey was actually kicked out of his house a little while later because his wife had found out that he was having an affair. The affair kind of destroyed his life because not only was he losing his wife, his house, it started to affect his job. He was fired from teaching. He was then fired from the hospital. And basically the only thing he had left was his practice, which his office was right around the corner from the Biltmore Hotel, which is the last place that Elizabeth Short was seen alive.
Do we know if Elizabeth was at her sister's wedding at his house?
It doesn't say that she was, but it is assumed. So it doesn't actually, specifically say that Elizabeth Short was there, but the entire family was. So it is assumed that Elizabeth was as well.
So that's interesting. This retired reporter, just started checking out all the different residences around. I'm so curious how he hit on the fact that that was where Elizabeth's sister got married too. This was way before the time that you could have just looked these things up on the internet. You know what I mean?
Well, so there are records, marriage records and things like that. And once he found out that there was a doctor, and a lot of it comes from what the FBI profiler was telling him, was that the way the body was positioned, where it was, and the whole crime scene, shall we say, appeared to the FBI profiler as if there was a personal reason for it to be there. They didn't know what it was, but it was almost as if it was a warning. At least this is what the FBI profiler said. And so because of that, that is what prompted the FBI and Mr. Harnish into looking at who lived in the area.
And then, okay, so the connections to Dr. Bailey is that he lived within just a block or so of where her body was found.
Correct.
Her sister had been, a year before, married at his house?
It was a couple of years before, yes.
And then he was a doctor, which fits definitely the profile. He was clearly going through a rough time in his life. He was losing everything. Mm-hmm. And his office, and we are assuming that Elizabeth knew him personally. We're assuming that, correct? We don't know for a fact. But it's surmised that she could have, when Manley dropped her off at the Biltmore Hotel, that we're surmising that she could have called the doctor just because he was right around the corner. She didn't have any money. We knew that. So she could have called the doctor and said, or even just walked over to his office, right?
Well, there are also records that show that Bailey himself had often rented rooms at the Biltmore Hotel. So he could have already been at the Biltmore.
They could have ran into each other.
They could have run into each other, or she could have given him a call. No one's really quite sure. She was supposedly at the Biltmore to meet her sister, so her and her sister could then travel to Chicago where her sister lived. And I mean, there are definitely a lot of assumptions. You know, one of the assumptions is that possibly her sister had called Dr. Bailey to look after Elizabeth before she got there. But again, that's an assumption.
Well, wouldn't that have come out, though? I mean, I'm assuming the police spoke to her sister. Why did her sister not show up that day? Do we know?
We do not. It could have been Elizabeth just...
Said her sister was coming?
Elizabeth did tend to, shall we say, exaggerate and make things up. She wasn't what you would call a liar, but when it came to things like that, she was still just really young. She was inexperienced. She was not the drunk, and she didn't sleep around like history has portrayed her.
Made her out to be.
Right. But, you know, being that young, not really having a direction in life, shall we say, she did tend to exaggerate. We'll put it that way. So, you know, she may have very well been on her way to see her sister. Manley did drop her off first at the Greyhound bus depot in downtown Los Angeles, and waited for her while she dropped her baggage off. And then they proceeded to go back to the Biltmore where he dropped her off, and then that was the last time he ever saw her. We do know that she was hanging around in the bar area, even though it says that nobody really saw her drinking and nobody ever saw her talking to anybody there. And then a little while later, she was seen going into the elevator and going upstairs, and that was the last time anybody had ever seen her. So, you know, what happened after that is going to be speculation, no matter what, because no one really knows.
But this Bailey kind of fits all the different portions of the profile. Like individually, he was within the location. If his office is right down the street, he frequented the hotel. He probably knew her. We know he at least knew her sister. And then her body was found
a block away from where he had lived.
Do we know so we know that her body was posed in what the police had said, a seductive or sexual way.
Correct.
Do we know if it was in the direction of his house?
It does not state that, so I really couldn't answer that. With everything I read, and I actually did personally speak to Larry Harnish because I wanted to make sure that he was okay with me putting all of this in the book, and we never really got down to asking those type of questions of him. So I kind of feel bad about that. I was so into, getting the book right that all of these other questions that later came up, like you're asking now, I wish I had asked him, but unfortunately I can't really answer that.
But there's so out of all the suspects, Bailey kind of just fits in every little tiny pocket that the profiler had said. What was the other part about his wife? He didn't leave. Well, first of all, how long did he live after Elizabeth was murdered?
1 year.
And then he had left money, or he didn't leave his money to his ex-wife, right?
Well, here's the thing. And this goes to one of the speculations on why the man was never caught and why it's still an open-ended case. Mr. Bailey was also suffering from Alzheimer's.
Okay.
So it wasn't completely pronounced at the time that Elizabeth Short was murdered, but the assumption, and again, all of this is assumption. Like every, there is not one suspect out there that is not based on pure assumption. I need to put that out there because no one knows.
No one knows.
Now, the assumption is, and we do know that he was suffering from Alzheimer's, and he did pass away from Alzheimer's. That was in the coroner's report. So it is believed that when Elizabeth Short either called him to see if she could come to his room, or called him at his office because he sometimes slept at his office, that let's say that he was at his office. The assumption is that he had gotten a room for her, had come over, and in his declining mental state made a pass at Elizabeth. And with him being, basically old enough and maybe even older than her father, had shunned his advances. So the assumption is that it is quite possible that his being spurned caused him to go into a fit of rage, fueled by the Alzheimer's, and killed her without actually meaning to. And of course, I keep saying assumption because that's all we have. But the fact that she was, now this is according to the FBI profiler, the fact that she was cleaned and was immaculate at the time she was found, regardless of the fact that she was bisected, the act of cleaning her showed this is going to sound kind of funny, but a caring for the body, and the mutilation would be as a way to try and throw people off about what happened.
So the mutilation part wasn't purposeful not purposeful. It was purposeful.
It was purposeful, yes.
Yeah, but it wasn't vindictive. It wasn't anger directed at her.
Correct.
What about the smile? What about the cut from her lips to her ears?
Again, that is part of the mutilation. And again, if the man had been suffering from a severe bout of Alzheimer's that was fueled by his rage, there is a possibility that a lot of what he was doing was uncontrollable.
Could he have done this? Was his doctor's office, was it set up where he had like separate exam rooms? Like, would he have been able to do this at his office?
I can't answer that, but what I do know is that he did have a separate examining room and check-in. So, and that was for privacy of the patients, like any good doctor would have. So, it is quite possible that he managed somehow to get her out of the hotel, if that is where it was done. There is also the possibility that she had gone upstairs for some unknown reason and then came back down and went out the back entrance of the hotel without anybody seeing her. Not that she was trying to hide, the fact that she was leaving, and had gone to his office that way, which would be closer than going out the front door, down the walkway and around the hotel. So it is quite possible that all of this actually happened at his office.
And she could have went to, if he had, okay, first of all, they wouldn't know if he had a room there because you said he would have used an assumed name.
See, now, not necessarily. And, but then again, the man, you were asking, why has he never been a suspect? The man was never a suspect because, he had such a tenuous connection to her. What the police were doing is they were looking at all of the people that were in her notebook, or I'm sorry, her phone book, her address book. And with all of these other phone calls coming in with people, saying, I did it. And all of these people that they had to, either dismiss out of hand or, run a brief check to see if they were telling the truth. It's very possible that Dr. Bailey just slipped under the radar.
Right. So they maybe never even checked the Biltmore's records.
Exactly. And as far as I know, they never did. But again, that's speculation on my part.
I'm just so curious, the way that she was murdered and mutilated and all of her blood drained, that probably didn't just happen in a normal bathtub, right?
That is the assumption, yes. So
having an office with an exam room, we don't know what was in there, obviously. But the other big thing was that when he did pass away, he had a mistress and he had left all of his money to her, correct?
That is what that they say, but again, that one is also a little tenuous also. He supposedly had broken up with his mistress while trying to save his marriage. And no one is really quite sure whether he kept it up after his wife had kicked him out, or whether the mistress, knowing that he was in mental decline, would have stayed with him anyway. So, everything with this case, it's one of the things that I think fascinates people so much, is that no matter what we come up with, it's all assumption.
And then there's a different angle, like the fact that he was getting a divorce and he had a mistress, and you know what I mean? Like just like Manly had a wife, it just like, it's not just the murder. Like you start contacting people or looking at people, and then there's all these facets of their life.
Right.
But the one thing that can't be contended though, is that, Bailey's wife sued the mistress, or went after the mistress because he left money to her, basically the mistress, rather than his wife. And the wife believed it was because she knew a secret. Like that's not contended. I mean, that's not under contention because it was in the newspapers, right?
Right. But, again,
not in relation to Black Dahlia. It was in relationship to their divorce and their messy divorce. And correct. This didn't have anything to do with the Black Dahlia, but the wife truly believed that the mistress got whatever she got financially, or benefited from his death because she had a secret. And is that just another like checkbox, like, oh, she worked at it. Maybe she knew he killed the Black Dahlia.
Of course that you can check that box off as a possible. But again, like you keep mentioning Manley, and he had been questioned extensively, and it basically ruined his life, being the main suspect. And if you actually look at all of the statements and everything from both Manley, the letters that they found that were written by Elizabeth Short, they were friends, but they never actually consummated that friendship. We'll put it that way. But everybody still believes that, they were having this illicit affair, and there's actually no proof of it other than, probably a friendship that was not, shall we say, appropriate.
Yeah, it wasn't
a married man.
Right.
But, and the same thing with Elizabeth Short constantly being portrayed as a hard drinking slut.
Right.
She basically only drank once in her life, and that was when she was underage
and got
caught.
Right.
But, so I mean, the entire Black Dahlia case to me is one of those that there's just so much that we don't know. And, I think that's one of the reasons that even today, it every once in a while, you still see things pop up about the Black Dahlia. If I remember right, it was a little over a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, when, and I think it was a woman, if I remember correctly, from England, had stated that she had definitive proof of who killed her. And I cannot remember the man she accused. But then when she put the proof out, it wasn't proof at all. It was, all assumption again.
The same thing we're doing right now.
Exactly.
But out of everybody, I feel like Bailey had so many connections, living near where her body was found, being nearby when she was last seen, the wife saying the mistress knew a secret, the fact that he was a doctor, the fact that he had a mental condition at the time. Like all of these things. Do we know, this is the only thing though, do we know, was he an angry, mean man, or was he well liked?
Not at all. He, the one thing that Mr. Harnish told me is that in all accounts, Walter Bailey was just a man. He wasn't violent. He did not have a mean streak. He had a good bedside manner as a doctor, but knowing how Alzheimer's works, my biological mother has Alzheimer's now, and the changes that come with that disease can cause you to do things that you would not normally do if you were, and this is going to sound bad, but if you were in your right mind.
Right. So, like, judging he wasn't the greatest guy either. I mean, he was cheating on his wife.
Right.
So,
yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to, justify any of it. But when you look at who the man was, shall we say, pre-affair, he was just a normal family man.
So, but the thing is with the Black Dahlia case, people have not really thought, or anybody who's done extensive research never thought that the person who killed Elizabeth Short was a serial killer or a mass murderer. Everyone's always kind of thought it was a one-time thing, a wrong place, wrong time.
Well, actually, and I'm trying to remember the case, and it actually came. There was a case in Chicago
that was similar to.
Yes. And for the longest time, they actually believed that it was the same killer. So for a long time, they did believe that it was a possible serial killer.
But I mean, the general consensus isn't that it was someone who went around murdering one person after another.
Right, exactly. And I mean, that's one of the reasons that they went after Manley so hard, is because he was the last one to see her. He did have, shall we say, an emotional affair with Elizabeth Short, and had what they assumed was motive for her possibly, breaking it off with him. So, again, even the police were assuming a lot.
It's so weird because I feel like I've done extensive research on it. You've done extensive research. I mean, anyone who's done this story has done extensive research. But and to be quite honest, when I did the 3 episodes before, I felt like I got to know her. Like, you get so involved in it. But even doing that, we cannot imagine in any way, shape, or form what it had been like for Manly living in it. Like, we're so distant from it, even though we're doing all this and we're involved in the story, many, many years later, we still cannot really commiserate with what he was going through at that time and how much attention was on it. Do you know what I'm saying? Because it did affect him for the rest of life. He was probably never normal again because of being the last person to see her alive. But
believe me, I get it. I have often thought of Manly as also being a victim of that crime.
Exactly. If he didn't do it, which I've never really kind of believed that he did, he's really just not even in my top 10.
Right.
I guess my point is that we're talking about this so many decades later that we can't imagine. You think of the biggest story in the news right now, and it's whatever story it is huge, but it's fleeting because we have social media now and people get all hyped up about a story or a case. And then it 3 days later, it's a history, right?
Right.
Where back then the Black Dahlia case was the biggest case. It was in every paper every day for months on end. So there wasn't a break for him. No one cared about any other case.
Right.
No one could just scroll through their phone and find something else to be interested in. Back then, it was it. That was it, was this case. And the fact that it was never solved, and it never will be. There's nothing, they never found any DNA of the perpetrator on her at all, right? That you know of?
Well, back then, they weren't looking for DNA. And unless they were to, well, actually, and even now, I mean, once DNA technology came out, by the time it made it to where we would have been able to definitively identify it, her body was most likely decomposed to the point that nothing would have been found anyway, not to mention the killer had scrubbed her body.
Right.
So, even with DNA technology today, it's doubtful that they would have been able to find anything.
Right. So the Black Dahlia case, we can do this podcast and everybody else can do another podcast or another story or blog or book. It's 150 years from now.
Yeah.
It's still going to be the same story.
Exactly. One of the things that when I was writing the piece for my book, I delved into all of the different suspects. And I was amazed at how thin most of them are. You have the, and I'm not going to mention any names, but you have the one that most people believe.
Oh, good God. I talk about that in the episode, that it didn't happen. No,
the one thing I get a kick out of is the picture of Elizabeth Short that the person says is a picture of Elizabeth Short put next to Elizabeth Short is so obviously not her that throws it out right then and there.
Well, it takes any credence away from the thought that, well, and I'm going to say it, Hodel didn't do it. It's not.
Yeah, no, not even close.
It's not. It's ridiculous that it's gotten as much publicity as it has. I'm surprised with as much information that I found and as much reading that I didn't follow up on the Walter Bailey thing. Because to me, at this point, I've always been a true believer that, I leaned towards Leslie Dwayne Dillon, but now I feel a little different. I feel like Walter Bailey deserves the attention that maybe he did. I mean, it's just weird how you can check off so many boxes with him. I don't know that you can check off as many boxes with anybody else.
That is one of the reasons that I put this in the book. There were so many choices that I had, and I could have put a bunch of different ones in there. But after I read what Mr. Harnish and the FBI had discovered with this person, to me, it solved the case. And that's for me. I never tell people that the person in the book is the killer. I always say things like, now, I didn't come up with the theory, but I think once you read it, you'll be leaning toward the fact that this person is the one who killed Elizabeth Short.
Or at least as intrigued. It's intriguing that he checks off so many boxes.
Right. And I mean, it literally, like you said, it checks off so many boxes. It's really hard to deny that he should be at least the number one suspect for who did it.
Thanks so much for doing this with me today, Brian.
Oh, absolutely.
Is there anything you want to plug? Okay, you said 11 of your books are on Amazon right now?
Yes.
Okay, and I know you did.
Well,
now,
about that. Now, just as an FYI, 2 of the books that are up on Amazon right now have not been released yet. The Dark Tourism California will be released in May, and my very first non-paranormal book will be released next month on the 24th. That is Legends and Lore Along California's Highway 395.
So I'm going to link your books on my episode webpage to get them on Amazon. And then also the book, you said a book written by Larry.
It actually isn't a book written by Larry Harnish. But if you type in Larry Harnish on into Google, his website should come up, and it has some wonderful information. His entire website was about the Black Dahlia case.
Okay, so I'll do that, and I'll link that on my episode webpage too. And really quick, the books that you've written about the Queen Mary. You've written about, what was the other one that I wanted? I was standing at your table and I wanted like 5 of them, and I didn't have my wallet with me.
So Hollywood Obscura, California's Historic Haunts, Haunted San Pedro, Ghosts of the Queen Mary, Haunted Universal Studios, Ghosts and Legends of Alcatraz, Ghosts and Legends of Calico, Thinking Outside the Box, which is a biography of Frank Sumption, who invented the modern ghost box. My brain is not functioning here.
You're good. It's still kind of early on a Saturday morning, to be honest.
Yeah, for some reason, my brain, I think that's pretty much all of them.
Okay, and then you have a website too, you said?
I do. It's just go brianclune.com.
Hopefully we can talk more. I would love to hear some more about some of the other places.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. If you don't mind, I would like to plug one thing on my website. If you go to my blog, I write under the name of The Paratraveler. And I have 5 pieces up right now, and I promise I'm going to be getting more up, but I have to finish 2 books within the next month. So I'm kind of concentrating on that. But I write about different towns. San Diego, I have 2 for San Diego because you have to split it. It's so big. Virginia City, Kernville, and places like that. I'm starting to branch out into other states. And they're designed so people can have their own paranormal weekend without having to tour a group or anything like that. So I review haunted hotels, haunted restaurants, and different amusements within these towns that are haunted. So you can basically just go out, have some fun, have your own paranormal weekend, and hopefully have an experience or 2.
And learn some history at the same time.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And then stay in touch. We'll talk some more.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
The case of Elizabeth Short's murder will probably not be solved. It won't stop historians or armchair detectives from discussing it. We can only hope that Elizabeth Short can still rest in peace. For the next couple of weeks, we'll be replaying our 2018 3-part series on the Black Dahlia murders. We'll be back in January with all new episodes, with investigator Bob Taft from the Orange County Sheriff, missing persons cases, even a museum heist. So join us every Wednesday for brand new episodes starting mid-January. From our family at Haunting History Podcast to yours, we wish you a happy, healthy, and safe holiday season. Thank you for listening to this episode of Haunting History Podcast. We love hearing from you, so be sure to like, follow, and comment on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Haunting History Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to all your favorites.
Visit our website at hauntinghistorypodcast.com for more information on each episode, links to our Patreon page, and all of our social media platforms.
Until next time, I'm Kat.
I'm Haley.
Remember, the living are far scarier than any ghost.
Pandora makes it easy for you to find your favorite music. Discover new artists and genres by selecting any song or album, and we'll make you a personalized station for free. Download on the Apple App Store or Google Play and enjoy the soundtrack to your life.
Hey parents, Greenlight is here to take one big thing off your to-do list, teaching your kids about money. With a Greenlight debit card and money app of their own, kids and teens learn to earn, save, and invest. You can send money instantly, set flexible controls, and get real-time notifications of your kids' money activity. Set up chores and put allowance on autopilot to reward them for their hard work. Then learn about the world of money together. Get 1 month free when you sign up at greenlight.com/podcast.